In today's video, we're going to look at few airplanes that you can purchase for the same price as a brand new Honda Accord. Yes, these airplanes can be bought for $30,000 or less. Let's get into it. The first airplane we're going to look at is the Cessna 150. Now, when you think of Cessnas, you think of one of the earliest manufacturers of airplanes in the United States. The Cessna 150 is a very small airplane, two-seater, but this airplane is an absolute workhorse. Back in 1958, Cessna started producing these birds, and you still have a few thousand of them still flying today. As a matter of fact, you have training schools use the Cessna 150 to train their new pilots. And the reason being that Cessna 150 is one of the most forgiving airplanes in general aviation, period. That's why for new pilots or low-time pilots that needs to build time, you're always recommended to get a Cessna 150. One, because of its forgiving behavior, but also it's one of the most affordable and low-cost airplanes to maintain and to own. You can easily find a good working Cessna 150 either on Brainstormer, on Trader Plane, or you can check out controller.com and you can find easily $15,000 to $20,000 for a good working airplane. And for a well-equipped airplane, maybe say for IFR or with some glass cockpit, you can find $30,000 and a little bit north of that. But again, you don't need all that. You just need your basic six-pack, VFR, and a good working airplane. You can easily find one for 15 and 20 grand. Maybe the only downside you can find with the 150 is that it's considered slow by some pilots. And this airplane cruises around 100 miles per hour. That's nothing to sneeze at. Even some LSA airplanes today don't go that fast. So for most pilots, I think that's more than enough speed. Now, if you want a little bit more speed and a little bit more useful load, then let's check out the next airplane. Number 2 on the list is the Cessna 172. When you think of the godfather of general aviation aircraft, think of the 172. This airplane is also one of the early birds here in the United States, and this specific model is still being produced by Cessna today. Now, the newest models of the 172 will cost you close to $400,000, but you can get your hands on one of the early models for less than $30,000. Unlike the younger brother, the 150, the Cessna 172 gives you quite a few more options. You have longer range, more useful load, and you get those extra 2 seats to fit more people. Even with all the great extra options you get with the 172, this airplane is also just as forgiving as the 150. Okay, you get all that options, but you also get a very safe airplane. That's why you still see a lot of flight schools today use the 172 to train their pilots. One being that it's very safe, and also it's very cheap. It's very low cost to buy one, and it's very low cost to maintain one. And there's so many, thousands and thousands of Cessna 172 flying in the air today. So maintenance costs in terms of getting parts and getting things fixed would not be a hassle at all, because you have so many of them flying in the air today. You can find a basic VFR equipped 172 today anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000. Now, if you want something with more option, or an airplane that's been remodeled or upgraded, then you're looking at closer to $40,000, $50,000. But nevertheless, you can find a lot for still 25, 30 grand for this airplane. And a dirty little secret about the 172, since it's one of the most used airplanes for training purposes, you can always do a lease back with this airplane, meaning you can buy one and then lease it to a school, and they pay you for the usage of this airplane. Next on the list is the Piper Cherokee. Now, we've looked at 2 different airplanes that are high wing airplanes. This is the first low wing airplane that we're going to look at today, and the Piper Cherokee shares the same and very similar behaviors with the first 2 airplanes I talked about. This airplane was first introduced in the 60s, and just like the Cessnas, you have a lot of Cherokee still flying today and also being used in flight schools. Now, the thing about the Piper Cherokee is that you have several different variations, and models. You have the 140, 160, 180, 235, and it goes on and on and on. And the different models comes with different engine and horsepower. But the entry level is the 140, which is a superb airplane. Has all the safety characteristics, very forgiving airplane, very low to maintain and very low to buy. You can get a used early model Piper Cherokee in today's market anywhere from $20,000 to $28,000, $29,000. Even an IFR equipped airplane, you can find these airplanes for less than $30,000. Now, one tiny little complaint I will make about the Piper Cherokee is that it only has one door. It's a matter of convenience. For this airplane, if you're going to carry passengers, everyone has to scoot in through one door, which is on the passenger side. But other than that, this is a superb airplane, very low entry, very cheap to buy, and very cheap to maintain. Next airplane on the list is the Grumman American Trainer. Now, unlike the Cessnas, this is not your typical training airplane, but it does share similar characteristics. This airplane is also small, two-seater, but you have a lot of good options. A lot more useful load at over 1,000, and you can fly anywhere from 300 nautical miles to 400 nautical miles with your tanks filled up. The Grumman does have a small Lycoming engine similar to the Cessnas, but you get a little bit more performance with this airplane. I mentioned the useful load earlier. You get more useful load, and depending on your power setting, you can fly a little bit longer. The good thing about this airplane though is the fuel consumption. You're getting around 6 gallons per hour, cruising over 100 knots in this airplane. And with this airplane, to me, actually looks the best. When you think of the looks, the Cessnas, they look more like your mom's car or SUVs when you think about, when you compare these airplanes to your car. But the Grumman looks to me a little bit more sporty, something that a young pilot can use. And the most sexy thing about this airplane is the price. You can find a good working airplane anywhere from $18,000 to $22,000. That's cheaper than most new Accords or even Corollas that you can find in the market today. The last airplane we're going to look at today is the Sonics. So the prior 4 airplanes I listed are all certified airplanes. You have from Cessnas to Pipers, and then you have the Grumman. Sonics is the only airplane on this list that is home built. Now, if you know anything about the Sonics airplane, they have some of the most affordable kits in the market. And for pilots who are looking to get into a project or fly an experimental airplane, I think this is a great option for you. One, this airplane is very, very affordable to build on your own, and you can find a completely built airplane for less than $30,000. Easily you can find a Sonics right now for $20,000, $22,000, $24,000, $25,000 on brainstormer.com. But again, if you're going to purchase one of these, you have to do your homework properly, because this is not a certified airplane. It is experimental, so it means somebody else built it, either from their garage or with the help of a factory. But nevertheless, it's an airplane, and you can buy one for such an affordable price. And again, unlike the Cessnas or the Grumman or the Pipers, those are much more older. We're talking airplanes that are built in the 50s, 60s, or in the 70s, whereas the Sonics, you can find one that was built a year ago for $25,000. This airplane only seats 2. You have a useful load of 350 pounds, but this airplane can stay in the air long. You can fly this thing for over 500 miles, and you're cruising at over 130 miles per hour. If you're the pilot that loves to have fun, maybe do some aerobatics, the Sonics is definitely a great option to get into. Very low entry, very low maintenance. I would trade my Honda Accord for this airplane. About these airplanes, so let's get into it. The first airplane on the list today is the Flight Design C4. Now, a little history about Flight Design. This is a light sport aircraft manufacturer, and right now they actually have the highest selling light sport aircraft in the world. It's called the Flight Design. The light sport aircraft, the Flight Design CTSW, CTS, There's multiple models to it, but it's the #1 selling aircraft in the world, and it's a two-seater. And over the years, Flight Design have tried to bring in a comparable four-seater into the market. And again, because of certification, it's taken longer than expected. And from what I know, Flight Design actually applied for certification for the C4 back in 2011. So for several reasons, things have stalled. But again, we're expecting this airplane to hit the market this year. The Flight Design C4 will have a Continental IO360 engine. Power output is around 180 horsepower. The C4 is expected to seat 4 people comfortably and be able to travel 1,000 nautical miles without having to stop for extra fuel. Cruise speed is around 140 knots, so that's roughly a little over 166 miles per hour. So this is expected to be a true cross-country airplane, and you're able to take your family, your friends on a longer trip. Now, price point, the C4 is expected to sell at $250,000. Now, if we compare this price to other airplanes in the market, it's actually priced really well for the performance that you get from it, the fuel economy. With the IO360, you're expected to burn roughly 10 to 11 gallons per hour. Now, it's too soon to speak on all of this performance data and prices, but again, from what we know, these are the data that Flight Design released, and these are the numbers that we expect it to be once the airplane gets the proper certification. So let's just stay tuned and have our fingers crossed. Second airplane on the list today is called the VL3 Evolution by JMB. Now, the first thing about this airplane, it reminds me so much of the Lancer 360 or the Lancer Legacy. And this airplane comes in 2 different models. You can have the fixed gear with the fixed landing gear, and then you also have the retractable, which is always a sexy option. Okay, and it will cost you a little bit extra to have the retractable and to maintain the retractable, but you get a little bit more better performance from the airplane, because with those gears up, it means your airplane can go faster because you have less drag. Now, the VL3 is originally a Czech Republic airplane, and it's already selling in Europe, but not in the US. But this year, the manufacturer is planning to bring the airplane into the US as an experimental airplane. Now, again, for the reason I mentioned earlier, because it takes a long time and a lot of money to get an airplane certified, another route airplane manufacturer will go is to go through the experimental category. That way they don't have to spend as much money or time to get the airplane certified. So as an experimental, you buy a kit and then you put the airplane together yourself. And typically a manufacturer would have like a build assist program, which I expect the VL3 to have. The VL3, like most of the other light sport in the market, would have a Rotax 912 or 914 engine. And the expected cruise speed is at 145 knots, which is pretty fast for a light sport. And at that speed, you're also burning just 5 gallons per hour, which is awesome. Now, the price point for the VL3 is anywhere between $150,000 to $200,000, depending on the options that you get. Generally, things that will cost you a little more is the type of avionics you want to put in the airplane, if you want dining, or if you want your traditional 6-pack, or you want like IFR type avionics and you go for the Garmin, you probably have to pay a little bit more for that. And then, as I said also, if you chose the retractable gear instead of fixed gear, that's probably going to cost you just a little bit more also. Okay, so again, the price, expected price, $150,000, $200,000, maybe a little over $200,000 for this airplane. But it's a beautiful, beautiful aircraft. I can't stop staring at it because it reminds me so much of the Lancer Legacy. Again, these numbers are what we know right now, and they may change in the nearest future. But as of right now, we expect the numbers to stay the same. Number 3 airplane on the list is called the Pipistrel Panthera. If you watched any of my videos on MojoGrip, you know that I'm personally just obsessed with this airplane. The Panthera, sadly, has taken really long time for it to launch, and mostly due to certification problems. So originally, Pipistrel wanted to fit this airplane with a Lycoming engine called the IO390. Now, the output for this power platform is about 260 horsepower, but for whatever reason, that engine was not able to go through certification, so Pipistrel had to go back to the drawing board. And now the Panthera is expected to be fitted with the IO540, which already has certification. It's already been used in several aircraft, so they should have no problem certifying this airplane with that engine. That said, the IO540 is a much bigger engine, and what that means for Pipistrel is they have to go back to the drawing board and see how they can get the numbers in terms of fuel consumption and things like that, because originally they wanted the Panthera to be a fuel efficient airplane, a true four-seater, but also consumes less fuel. And this airplane is in the same category as the Cirrus SR-22s or the Cessna TTX. And those airplanes burn anywhere from 16, 20 to almost 30 gallons per hour, cruising at close to 200 knots. And what the Panthera promises us is you get the same speed at 200 knots but burn less, literally half the fuel. So the Panthera originally is expected to cruise around 200 knots but only burn around 10 gallons per hour. Now again, with the increase in the engine size, those numbers might change, but we're waiting for good news from Pipistrel. Nonetheless, I'm still super excited about this airplane, and I cannot wait to see it fly in the US. Now the Panthera is expected to cost around $500,000. This particular airplane though, I expect that price to go up post certification. If they're able to get it certified in the US, that price is likely going to go up. But another thing I've read about is that the Panthera might just come in as an experimental, okay? Because the certification is dragging the process. The manufacturer is thinking about just making the airplane as an experimental airplane. That way, they don't have to wait anymore for certification, and builders can choose which engine that best fits them or their flight plan. So I actually think that's a better route to go. But until they actually launch, we are waiting for Pipistrel to give us an update. Number 4 on the list is the Diamond DA50. So personally, I like this airplane because I trained in a Diamond DA40, which is an incredible airplane. Diamond is generally known for its amazing safety record, and that's one of the reasons why I opted to train in the DA40, because it has such a high safety record. Now the DA40 is expected to be just about the same, a nice, safe, and reliable airplane to fly. Now the DA50, again, we've been teased about this airplane for years, and currently it's going through certification. The DA50, unlike the DA40, is expected to seat 5 people comfortably. Right now, the specific engine to be used, we don't know yet. We know it's going to be a Lycoming engine, and power output would be anywhere from 260 horsepower to 375 horsepower. Fuel consumption, again, we don't have that information just yet, but we do expect this airplane to cruise around 170 to 180 knots, and the price point will be anywhere from $450,000 to $550,000. Again, we're going to wait on Diamond to get the airplane certified before we know the real deal. The airplane looks good, in my opinion, design-wise. It looks very similar to the DA40, but definitely a little bit bigger and wider in terms of the cabin space. Now, the only color scheme we've seen so far is your general white color paint job, and then recently they came out with this gold, black, and purple. It looks very interesting, but not tasteful for me. So I hope you get, I hope Diamond does give you a better color combination than this current one. But anyway, until we know more, the DA50 again is expected to launch this year or sometime this year, and hopefully they're able to get the certification for it. And I'll definitely keep you guys updated once the airplane hits the market. The last airplane on the list today is the Icon A5. Now, I purposely put this airplane as the last one because I want to talk a little bit more about it. The Icon A5, this is a great airplane in terms of design and things that it's expected to do. But as you know, if you know anything about Icon, they have been plagued by just so many bad news and bad media. The airplane has had some high profile fatal crashes in the last few years. And I even made a video recently about the crash and how safe this airplane is. But more interesting is that Icon continues to raise the price for this airplane. Now, initially, the A5, when they launched initially, I believe cost around $150,000, which puts it around the same ballpark as many light sport aircrafts in the market. And also, just like a lot of the light sport aircraft, the Icon A5 also uses the Rotax 912. You expect the airplane to cruise around 100 to 110 knots per hour and burn 3 to 4 gallons per hour, which is where the Icon A5 sits. But here's the thing, over the years, they've had a lot of marketing efforts, so I know a lot of money went into that, also to get the airplane built and certified, things like that. Icon has just had so many delays and so many stalls in the production of this airplane. And unlike the other airplanes I listed before, Icon A5's issues are not anything certification related. It's just a lot of things in the company. I have no idea. But anyway, right now, to get into one of these, you're now looking at price point from $269,000 all the way up to $389,000. Now, you may ask yourself, well, it's an airplane, it's a nice airplane, and it should cost around that, but no. When you think of other airplanes in this particular category, which is a light sport, with the performance you're getting, this airplane should not cost more than $200,000 max. It should be anywhere from $100,000 to $120,000 to maybe even $150,000. Anything beyond that is pushing the envelope, and that's what Icon A5 has done. They've pushed the envelope way outside, and right now I do think that paying close to $400,000 for literally a sport airplane, which is somewhat a toy, it's something you take out maybe on the weekends. To me, it's not a true cross-country airplane because it's slow. Okay, the current cruise speed for the Icon A5 is around 85 or 95 knots. That's pretty slow. That's pretty slow for a cross-country airplane, but you're going to be paying $400,000 for that. With that same price, you can probably get a Diamond. Hell, you can even get into a nice Cirrus for $400,000. Okay, so, but nevertheless, the Icon A5 is still a beautiful airplane. It's nice to look at. It has a really nice sporty interior. But again, Icon needs to do something about that price point. Now, unlike the other airplanes listed in this video, the Icon A5 is already certified and is already in production. And you have a few owners out there. But if you're looking to get into one right now, you probably have to wait a little bit because they do have issues with their production. And again, with that price point, I think you could probably get a better airplane with better performance for even less than $389,000. But until we get more update from Icon, those are the numbers. You know, it's close to $400,000 for one, and you're only cruising at 85 to 95 knots.